A long marble corridor, blue ceremonial light pooling on polished stone. 400 dignitaries holding their breath, as if breath itself were a courtesy they could not afford. The hall smells of imported white roses, and somewhere beneath that softness of forge smoke and iron. At the far end of the corridor, a woman in a silver veil, 25 years old, eyes the color of beaten gold. Her hand rests on a ceremonial dagger she has been told all her life never to draw inside a temple. She is about to draw it. Across from her, a man in a plain gray suit. Brown hair, brown eyes. No medals, no house colors. Nothing about him that anyone in this hall has bothered to look at twice. But his hands are still. Too still. The kind of still that does not belong on a soft man in a gray suit on a marriage day. A war horn sounds somewhere far away, and then the lights begin to red. Part 1. The wedding hall on Valoran Prime smelled wrong. That was the first thing Aaron noticed. Not the cold, not the blue ceremonial lights, not the 400 dignitaries watching her like she was a museum piece behind glass. The smell. It was floral, sweet, some kind of earth flower they had imported for the occasion. Roses, someone had whispered. White roses. A human tradition. She hated it. Roses didn't belong on Valoran. Valoran smelled of forge smoke and iron rain and the bitter tea her father drank before battle. Roses were soft, decorative, useless. Exactly like the man standing across from her. She studied him through her lashes. Her veil was thin, translucent silver mesh woven by the temple weavers. She could see everything through it, and he probably couldn't see her at all. Good. Let him guess. Let him wonder. His name was Reed Brennan, 30 years old, human, from a backwater colony town in a place called Vermont, on a planet called Earth, in a sector her tutors had always called the Death Belt. He stood with his hands folded in front of him. He wore a plain gray suit. No medals. No house colors. Nothing. Erin was 25 years old, the only daughter of Emperor Maelric Valdric, and she had been preparing for war since she could walk. This was her father's gift to her. This soft, smiling, gray-suited stranger. If her father had wanted to insult her, he could not have chosen better. The high priest droned on. Something about unity. Something about the New Age. Something about two species becoming one family. Erin stopped listening somewhere around blessed by the twin moons. Her father stepped forward. Malric Valdric, the Emperor, 60 years old, 240 pounds of scar tissue and stubbornness. He placed one heavy gauntleted hand on her shoulder, like she was a chess piece. That was the thing. That was the exact thing. He squeezed once, firm, quick. The kind of squeeze a general gives a soldier before sending him into the meat grinder. "This is for peace, daughter," he murmured. She didn't look at him. Couldn't. Because if she looked at him, she might cry. And a Valdric princess did not cry. Not in front of 400 witnesses. Not in front of a husband. Especially not in front of a soft earth husband who smelled like roses. So she swallowed it down. The humiliation, the fury, the grief of every single thing she had ever wanted, and would now never have. She swallowed it like a mouthful of broken glass, and she stepped forward to meet her groom. Reed Brennan smiled at her. A small smile. Polite. The kind of smile you give a stranger on a train when you accidentally make eye contact. He had brown hair, brown eyes, a face that was neither handsome nor unhandsome. He was not tall. He was not short. He was, Erin decided with a cold flare of contempt, the most aggressively average creature she had ever seen. He took her hand. His skin was warm. That surprised her. Her own people ran cold-blooded. She had expected him to feel like a fish. Instead, his palm was warm and dry and steady. She wanted to yank her hand back. She didn't. The priest said the words. Reed said the words. Erin said the words. Somewhere in the back of the hall, a Valoran war horn sounded. It was supposed to be celebratory. To her, it sounded like a funeral. Then it was done. She was married. To him. The diplomatic cruiser was called the Stellar Concord. A pretty name for a coffin, Erin thought. She had her own quarters. He had his own quarters. They shared a sitting room between them, a kind of neutral ground, all polished walnut paneling, and a single long window looking out onto the slow-turning stars. Their belongings had been arranged there, hers on one side, his on the other. And his side, she had to admit, confused her. She walked the perimeter of his half on the first night arms, folded across her chest like a hunter, circling a strange animal. A small wooden chest, old, earth oak by the grain. Inside she could see when she opened the lid paper books. Actual paper, bound with thread. She picked one up. The cover was soft and dog-eared. Mary Oliver. She had no idea who that was. She set it back. A clay pot. Inside the pot, a green plant. Small. Aromatic. She bent down and sniffed. Sharp. Sweet. Strange. Basil, said a voice behind her. She did not jump. Valdric princesses did not jump, but her shoulders went very, very still. Reed was leaning in the doorway. He had changed out of his wedding suit. He was wearing a flannel shirt and soft trousers and house slippers. House slippers. On a starship. "It's basil," he said again. "My mother grows it. I brought a cutting." "Why?" "Because it tastes good." "On what?" He blinked, considered. "Tomatoes, mostly." She stared at him. He stared back. "You came halfway across the galaxy," she said slowly, "and you brought a vegetable garnish. It's an herb. I don't care what it is." "All right." He didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He just stepped into the room, walked past her, and began watering his basil from a small clay cup. He hummed while he did it, a low, tuneless hum. Erin watched him for 30 full seconds. Then she turned and left and shut her door. Hard. The first week, he cooked every night, without asking, without announcement. She would smell it from her quarters, a warm, soft smell of butter and salt and something earthy. Then a small chime would sound on her door, 3 soft tones, and she would walk out into the sitting room to find a covered bowl on the table. A spoon laid beside it, a folded cloth napkin. He would not be there. He would have eaten alone in his own quarters, leaving her plate covered to keep it warm. She did not eat it. She would sit across from the bowl. She would lift the lid. Steam would rise. A thick, creamy potato stew. New England farmhouse style, he told her once when she finally asked what it was. He had said it like it was an apology. She did not eat it. She let it grow cold. She replaced the lid. She went to bed. In the morning, the bowl would be gone. Washed. Dried. Stacked neatly on the shelf. He never said a word. By the fourth night, she was so angry she could not breathe. Captain Hadron found her in the training bay on the seventh morning. She was attacking the heavy bag. Not training. Attacking. She had been at it for an hour. Her knuckles were split. Her shoulders burned. She did not care. Hadron stood in the doorway with his arms folded. He was 68 years old, the captain of her personal guard, and he had been her father's man before she was even born. He had taught her to ride, to shoot, to grieve. He watched her throw 3 more punches before he spoke. "Princess, don't. Princess. Hadron, I said don't." She hit the bag again. The chain rattled. He waited. She hit the bag again, harder. Then she stopped. She pressed her forehead against the heavy canvas. She closed her eyes. "He's making me stew," she said. "I beg your pardon. Stew, Captain. He's making me stew every night." "Ah, and I won't eat it." "No, of course not. Don't be sarcastic. I would not dream of it, my princess." She let out a breath, a long one. She turned around. Her braid had come loose. Strands of dark hair were stuck to her temples. "He hums, Hadron." "Does he?" "He hums while he waters his plant. He owns a plant. He brought a plant from his planet on a diplomatic cruiser across 40 light years because he likes the taste of it on tomatoes. Tomatoes are a kind of fruit, I believe. I don't care. No princess." She rubbed her face. Her hand smelled of leather and sweat and her own blood. "He is nothing, Hadron." The old captain was quiet for a long time. Then he said very softly, "Be careful, my princess." She looked up sharply. "Of what?" "I have fought for 40 years, he said. "I have learned one thing. The enemy who frightens me most is not the one who roars. It is the one who is quiet." She stared at him. "Is that supposed to mean something?" "It means what it means." He inclined his head, and he left her there. She told herself he was wrong. She told herself for 3 more days. The thing was, Reed Brennan was not just polite. He was not just quiet. He was something stranger than that. He was unobtrusive. He had a way of being in a room that made the room seem larger. He never raised his voice. He never made demands. When she walked into the sitting room, he was often already gone like a cat who had heard her footsteps 2 corridors back. He left her alone, which was, of course, exactly what she had said she wanted, which was also somehow beginning to irritate her even more than the cooking. On the 10th night, she sat down across from her cold stew, and she stared at it, and she did something she had not planned to do. She lifted the spoon. She ate. It was good. That was the worst part. It was really genuinely good. Salt and butter and something herbal threaded through it. Basil, probably the basil from his stupid clay pot. She ate 3 spoonfuls. Then she put the lid back on. She stood up. She went to bed. In the morning, the bowl was gone. He never said a word about it. She hated him a little more for that. It was on the 11th night that she saw the letter. She had not meant to spy. She had simply been walking the long way back to her quarters, taking the lower corridor because she could not sleep. She passed his open door. The light was on inside. He was sitting at a small desk in a pool of warm yellow lamplight. He was reading something. A piece of paper, folded twice creased deep, like it had been opened and closed 100 times. She paused in the corridor. She should have kept walking. She did not keep walking. Valdric princesses, she told herself, were trained observers. This was reconnaissance. This was strategic. She watched him. He read slowly. His lips moved a little. He smiled once, a real smile, the kind he had never given her. Then his eyes went bright, and he pressed the heel of his hand against them hard. He folded the paper carefully. He kissed it. Just a quick brush of his lips against the fold. He put it in a small wooden box on the desk. He turned off the lamp. Aaron stood in the dark corridor a long time after he had gone to bed. A letter. A paper letter. From whom? About what? A man like that, he thought, did not have anyone. A man like that did not have someone who wrote him letters worth kissing. But he did. And it bothered her. It bothered her in a way she did not have a name for. She walked back to her own quarters slowly. She sat on the edge of her bed. She looked at her own hands in her lap. 25 years old, trained in 17 martial forms, heir to the Valdric throne, and no one in the galaxy had ever written her a letter. Not one. Her father sent dispatches. Her instructors sent reports. Her tutors had sent corrections. But no one, not one single living soul, had ever sat down with paper, with a pen, to say to her, with their own hand, "You are loved." Her throat felt suddenly very tight. She lay down. She pulled the blanket up. She stared at the ceiling. She told herself it did not matter. She told herself this for a very long time. The next night she asked him about Earth. She did not plan to. It happened. He was at the long siding room window. The stars were sliding by, slow and silver. He had a cup of something in his hands. He turned when she came in. He did not look surprised. "Tell me about your planet," she said. She said it like a challenge, like an interrogation. He nodded once. He gestured to the bench across from him. She did not sit. He did not press. He turned back to the window. "It's wet," he said. "Excuse me. Earth. It's wet. That's the first thing about it. 2/3 of the surface is ocean. People grow up listening to weather. That's not a metaphor. That's the truth. You wake up. You ask, what's the sky doing today? And then you decide what kind of day you'll have. And what does the sky do mostly? Whatever it wants." She made a small sound, not quite a laugh. He smiled faint. "We had a thing called the Ash Years. I have heard of it. It started before I was born. Climate collapse, crop failures, long winters, hotter summers. 1/3 of the population died. Whole cities went under. The ocean took Miami when I was small. Took New Orleans before that. The maps we use now don't look like the maps my grandfather used." He took a sip from his cup. Tea, she guessed from the smell. Something herbal, My family lived in Vermont, North Country. We were lucky. The mountains held. The water tables held. Most of our valley survived. My mother kept a garden. Tomatoes, squash, basil. We ate what we grew. We learned to make do. And your father? Dead. Cancer. I was 15. He said it flat. The way a man says it when he has said it 1,000 times and used up all the softness of saying it. She did not say sorry. She did not know how. She said, "And the rest." He looked at her. Just looked. For maybe 3 full seconds. Then he turned back to the window. "I had a sister," he said. "Her name was Nora. She was 10. Was. The word sat there. "There was a storm," he said. "We get them now. Big ones. The ash years rewrote our weather. There was a storm, and my mother sent us to the cellar, and Nora went back upstairs for her dog. I don't know why she did that. We had told her. 12 times. I had told her. But she was 10, and she loved that dog. And she went back." He stopped. She did not breathe. "The roof came down," he said quietly. "I dug for her for 6 months. 6 months. I was 16. I knew where to dig. I had the maps of the foundation. I had the strength. I dug, and the seasons turned, and I dug. My mother brought me food. She would sit on the porch and watch me dig. She never told me to stop. And one day I found a bracelet. Blue paracord. She had braided it herself. It was on what was left of her wrist." He took another sip of his tea. His hand did not shake. Erin realized her own hands were trembling. She pressed them flat against her thighs. "I stopped digging that day," he said. "I went up to the porch. I put the bracelet in my mother's hand, and she said to me, she said, 'Reed, you are the strongest boy I have ever known. And the strongest thing you will ever do is learn when to lay something down.'" He turned and looked at her then. His brown eyes were a little too bright. "I didn't understand her for a long time," he said. "I do now." He set his cup down. "That's Earth," he said. "That's where I come from. Wet, loud, always taking, always asking what you can carry, and then asking for a little more." He smiled very small. "You wanted to know." She could not speak. She nodded once. He nodded back. He picked up his cup. He went to his quarters. He shut the door softly. Erin stood at the window for a long time. She had been wrong, she realized. He was not nothing. She did not yet know what he was, but he was not nothing. She avoided him for 3 days after that. She told herself it was strategy. Withdraw. Regroup. Reassess the enemy. Except he was not the enemy. That was the problem. He had not done anything enemy-shaped. He had cooked her stew. He had watered his basil. He had told her calmly about the worst day of his life because she had asked. She did not know what to do with that. She trained harder. She fought Hadrainen in the practice ring twice a day. She bruised her ribs. She bloodied her lip. Hadrin beat her once easily, and afterward he sat down beside her on the mat and offered her a flask of water and said nothing at all. She drank. "He told me about his sister," she said, finally. Hadrin's eyes flickered toward her. Only that. He waited. She was 10. A storm killed her. He dug for her for 6 months. He said his mother told him there is strength in laying something down. Hadran took the flask back. He drank. He capped it. A wise woman, he said. You don't even know her. I know what she said. Aaron glared at him. He didn't notice, or pretended not to. He has a basil plant, Hadran. You have mentioned this. He hums. You have mentioned this also. He hums while he waters it. Princess. What? The old captain looked at her sideways. There was something in his face she didn't like. Something gentle. You are talking about him a great deal. I am not. You are. I am cataloging him. Tactically. Of course. I am. She stood up. She walked out. He did not follow her. She slammed her quarters door. She sat on her bed. She thought about a paracord bracelet on a child's wrist for 40 solid minutes before she fell asleep. She fell ill on the 15th day. It came on fast. A heat in her throat, a pressure behind her eyes. By evening, she was shivering. By midnight, she was burning. Some alien virus, the ship's doctor said, irritated and helpless. Her people's immune systems were not built for the cocktail of pathogens floating around a multi-species cruiser. Bed rest. Fluids. Time. She did not remember much of the first night. She remembered vaguely that someone changed the cold cloth on her forehead. Someone hummed. Someone hummed very softly, a tune she did not know low, and slow in a deep, quiet voice. In the morning when she opened her eyes, the room was dim. The lamp was set low. Reed was in a chair beside her bed. He had not gone to sleep. His shirt was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. There was a small bowl of water on the table beside him, and a cloth and a cup of something that smelled of ginger and honey. He looked at her. There you are, he said. His voice was so tired. You stayed, yes. Why? He blinked, as if the question made no sense to him. Because you were sick, he said. She closed her eyes. She did not know why, but a tear slipped out of one of them and rolled hot down her temple into her hair. She felt his hand take hers, carefully, as if she might pull away, as if he was prepared for her to pull away. She did not pull away. His thumb moved once across her knuckles. Then it was still. She fell asleep again. When she woke, he was slumped sideways in the chair, his head fallen against the wall, fast asleep. His hand was still in hers. She did not move it. She lay very still. She watched him breathe. He had a small scar through one eyebrow that she had not noticed before. He had freckles on the bridge of his nose. He looked younger asleep. He looked, she thought, with a slow surprise like a person. Not a category. Not a species. Not a treaty. A person. She did not pull her hand away. Not for a long time. By the 3rd day, she was sitting up. By the 5th, she was walking. By the 7th, she was almost herself again. Reed never spoke of the fever. He went back to cooking. She went back to eating. They did not eat together, but she ate now every night openly, and she put the empty bowl on the counter, and once she rinsed it before she went to bed. He found it the next morning. She watched him from her doorway. She saw him pick up the rinsed bowl. She saw his hands go still. She saw him smile. He did not turn. He did not say anything. He just stood there for a moment with the wet bowl in his hands. Then he washed it and put it away. She closed her door quietly. She sat on her bed, and she did not know. She did not know what was happening to her, except that something inside her chest had begun to hurt in a way that did not feel like a wound. It felt like a thaw. It felt like ice cracking on a river in spring. It felt like something she had buried so long ago that she had forgotten she had buried it. It felt like the small, terrified beginning of hope. She pressed both hands over her mouth, and she did not let herself feel it. Not yet. On the 18th day, she dropped his coat. It was an accident. She was carrying a stack of folded things from the laundry chute. His were mixed in with hers, by mistake or by the steward's confusion, and she was setting them on the bench in the sitting room when one of his old coats slipped off the top. A photograph fell out of the inside pocket. She bent down. She picked it up. She did not mean to look. She looked. It was Reed. Younger. Maybe 23 or 24. He was wearing a black combat uniform, and on the shoulder was a patch she did not recognize. A wolf's head and a single silver word. Sentinel. He was not smiling. He was standing in the wreckage of a city. The buildings behind him were black skeletons. There was smoke in the sky and a streak of blood across his cheekbone and his eyes. His eyes. She had never seen those eyes. The man in the photograph was a stranger. The man in the photograph was a killer. Her hands went cold. She tucked the photograph back into the coat pocket slowly, carefully, with the precision of a woman defusing a bomb. She folded the coat. She set it on the bench. She walked to her quarters and she shut the door, and she sat on the edge of her bed in the dark for a very, very long time. He had not lied to her. He had not lied. He had simply not told her. He had told her about Vermont, about his mother, about Nora, about Basil. He had not told her about the wolf's head patch. He had not told her what those eyes had seen. She did not sleep that night. She told no one. Not Hadron. Not herself, really. She filed it away. She buried it. She told herself again that it changed nothing. That her husband was a polite man who cooked stew and hummed. She told herself this. She did not believe it. On the 20th day, she walked past the auxiliary control room and saw him through the half-open door. He was not supposed to be in the auxiliary control room. She stopped. He was at a small console, his back to the door. The screen in front of him was streaming a long string of characters, fast encrypted, the kind of feed that had no business being on a diplomatic cruiser. His face, reflected in the dark glass of the console, was a face she did not know. Cold. Set. Reading. She watched. He did not move for a long time. Then his shoulders rose and fell once in a long, slow breath, and he reached out and tapped a single key. The screen went black. He turned. He saw her. For 1/2 of 1 second, the face she did not know was still on his face. Then it was gone, and the polite, quiet husband was back with his small, careful smile and his warm brown eyes. "Aaron," he said. What was that? A message. From whom? My mother. She looked at him. He looked at her. He was lying. She had not been raised at the Valdrick court for 25 years. without learning what a lie looked like. She had watched her father lie to envoys. She had watched her tutors lie to her. She had lied herself with great skill since she was 8 years old. She knew. She knew. He was lying. "Your mother," she said slowly. "Yes." In a private military cipher. He didn't blink. "She likes to be careful." "Reed." "It's nothing, Aaron." His voice was so gentle. His eyes were so steady. He was so good at it. She felt something rise in her chest. Anger. Hurt. Something worse than either of those, something she did not want to name. She opened her mouth. She closed it. She turned and walked away, and her boots made no sound at all in the corridor. She made it 3 steps. Then the lights went red. Then the ship screamed. The alarm was a high, brutal wail, the all stations boarding klaxon, the one she had only ever heard in drills. The deck shuddered under her feet. Somewhere far below them in the belly of the Stellar Concord, something punched through the hull with a low metallic boom that she felt in her teeth. The Concorde's automated voice cut through the noise. "Hull breach. Deck 7. Boarding imminent. All personnel to stations. This is not a drill." She froze for half a heartbeat. Then, training took over. She drew the ceremonial dagger at her hip. Hammered steel. A wedding gift from her father. Sharp. She turned back toward the corridor. Reed was there. Already there. He had crossed the distance from the control room in absolute silence. He did not have a weapon in his hand. He did not need one. His hands were loose at his sides. His shoulders were level. His weight was forward. There was something in the way he was standing that her body recognized before her mind did something. Her 17 years of training screamed at her to read, and she could not quite read it. Heavy boots in the corridor behind her. Many of them. The wet rasp of Cathar voices. The hard clank of crude armor. Hadran came around the far corner at a sprint. His pike was already humming. 3 of her guard were with him. "Princess," he barked. "Behind us, now." Reed did not move. Reed looked at her. His face was very calm. His eyes were very awake. His voice when he spoke was a voice she did not recognize. He said, "Aaron, stand behind me." The polite husband was gone. Something else was standing in her sitting room. And the corridor was full of pirates. Part 2. The corridor went still in the way only corridors full of armed men can. Erin could hear her own heartbeat. She could hear the soft hiss of the ship's air recyclers. She could hear the wet animal breathing of the Cathar pirates, 12 of them, maybe 14, blocking the hull in a half-crescent of crude armor and serrated blades. She could hear Reed breathing too. Slow. Even. Like a man about to lie down for a nap. That was the thing that frightened her most. Not the pirates. Not the alarm. The breathing. Hadran's voice cracked across the corridor like a whip. "Form on the princess. Pikes up. Now." Her 3 remaining guards snapped into formation around her. Energy pikes hissed to life, blue light flickering on the dark walls. Hadran himself stepped to the front shoulder to shoulder with Reed, who had not moved, who was still standing there in his flannel shirt, and his soft trousers, and his house slippers. His house slippers. Erin almost laughed. A wild, hysterical sound that wanted to come up her throat. She bit it down. The lead pirate stepped forward. He was huge, bigger than any Cathar she had ever seen on a recruitment poster. His tusks had been filed to points. His armor was stitched together from at least 4 different species kills. He looked at the formation. He looked at Reed. He grinned, and he raised his hand, and the corridor exploded. Hadron moved first. He always did. His pike took the lead pirate through the throat before the man's hand had even finished its arc, a single brutal lunge with 40 years of practice behind it. The pirate dropped. Hadron was already turning, already swinging, already alive in that terrible old way of his, the way Erin had grown up worshipping the dance she had spent her whole childhood trying to learn. He killed a second pirate in the next breath. A third went down behind him, taken by Sergeant Tomar, but there were so many. So many. A slug punched through Tomar's shoulder plate. He went to one knee. He came up swinging anyway. Another slug took him in the throat, and he went down for good, choking his pike clattering against the bulkhead. Erin screamed. She did not mean to. The sound was out of her before she knew it was coming. Tomar had taught her how to throw a knife when she was 9 years old. He had a daughter at home. He had a daughter. Hadron's voice cut through the noise. "Princess, behind me, behind me." She gripped the ceremonial dagger. She could not get behind him. The guards were collapsing. The formation was breaking. One more was down already. Ribs sheared open by a serrated blade, his pike sparking and useless on the floor. The Cathar were pouring forward a wall of meat and metal, and she could see the small, ugly intelligence in their eyes. They had not come to kill her. They had come to take her. She thought fast and cold of the dagger, of where on her own body she would have to put it, of the angle, of the speed, of how much it would hurt, because she was not going to be taken, not by those. She would do it herself first. She raised the blade, and then Reed moved. She would never after be able to describe it properly. She would try. For years, she would try. She would tell people sometimes late at night, when the wine was warm and the room was dim. She would say, "You have to understand, he was just standing there." And then he was not. That was the only way to say it. He did not run. He did not lunge. There was no wind-up, no shouted word, no warning. One moment her husband was a soft man in house slippers. The next moment he was inside the Cathar formation, and the Cathar were dying. The first one swung an iron club at his head. Reed did not block it. He let it pass. He stepped into the swing inside the arc, where the club could not reach him. His hand closed on the pirate's wrist. There was a sound like a green branch snapping over a knee. The pirate screamed. Reed took the club. He used it on the next one, a short, vicious arc to the side of the knee. The leg buckled wrong. The pirate fell forward into Reed's other hand, which came up rigid and flat and caught him under the chin. That one did not scream. That one just stopped. 2 down. 3 seconds. Erin could not breathe. Hadron could. Hadron whispered low under his breath in a voice Erin had never heard from him. Light and ash. It was an old Valoran oath, a warrior's oath, the kind a soldier says when he sees something he was not supposed to live long enough to see. Reed kept moving. He dropped the club. He stepped past the bodies. A third pirate was raising a rifle, and Reed did not even look at him. Just turned his shoulder, and the slug went past. And Reed's hand was already on the rifle barrel, lifting it up. And then the pirate's own jaw was driven into the underside of his own skull by the rifle's butt, traveling 4 inches in a quarter second. That pirate went down too. Reed kept the rifle. He did not shoulder it. He fired it from the hip. 2-shot bursts. Controlled. Boring. The way a man fires a tool he has held 1,000 times. The slugs found targets she could not have hit on her best day at the range. Head, chest, head, head. 4 more pirates collapsed one after the other, like dominoes, tipping in a slow line. 8 seconds. 6 dead. Erin realized her mouth was open. She closed it. Hadran was shouting orders to the remaining 2 guards. "Hold the flank! Cover the door!" Erin could not hear him properly. Erin could only watch her husband, because that was Reed Brennan. That was the man who hummed. That was the man who had carried her hand to his mouth and kissed it on the morning of their wedding with a kind of shy, formal courtesy. That was the man who grew basil. He moved through the rest of the pirates like a stone through water. He did not waste emotion. He did not roar. He did not stop. Every step was a small, precise thing. Every blow ended someone. He fought with the cold, efficient ugliness of a man who had given up long ago on making fighting beautiful. He fought like a man with no use for beauty at all. And his face. His face was the worst part. There was nothing on his face. Not rage. Not pleasure. Not even concentration. Not the way she knew it. Just a flat, awake attention like a man reading a difficult page. Like a man doing arithmetic. She thought faintly, I have married a hurricane. She thought faintly, I have married a thing that walks on 2 legs and pretends to be a man. She thought faintly. Oh no. Hadran was still fighting. She saw him out of the corner of her eye. He had locked up with the Cathar captain himself, the huge one with the filed tusks, and they were going at each other along the bulkhead in a slow, grinding contest of pike and axe. The captain was bigger, younger. Hadran was 68 years old. Hadran was going to lose. She saw it. She saw it the way you see a stone falling. You see it leave the hand. You see it begin to drop. You know it will hit the ground. You cannot stop it. The captain's axe came up. It came down. Hadran turned his pike to catch it. The pike took the blow. The pike shattered, blue light spilling out in a soft hiss. The handle splintered. Hadran staggered. The captain raised the axe again. "No!" Erin screamed. The shot came from 20 feet away. It took the axe out of the pirate captain's hand, not the captain. The axe. The axe and a fair piece of the hand attached to it. The captain stared stupidly at the wet, ragged stump where his fingers had been. Then he turned and his eyes locked onto Reed, and he howled. And he charged. Reed waited. That was the part that broke Erin's brain. He waited. The Cathar captain, 300 pounds of bone and muscle and rage, came at her husband like a freight train, and her husband did not lift the rifle, did not raise his hands, did not crouch, did not flinch. He stood. He watched the man come. At the very last possible moment, he stepped sideways. Just that. A small, neat, almost polite step. The captain tried to stop. He could not. He was too heavy. He stumbled past 4 feet, 5 feet off balance. Reed's foot came up. Not a kick. A stamp. A short, brutal downward stamp into the back of the captain's left knee. There was a sound like a small tree snapping in a winter storm. The captain went down roaring, and Reed was already on him, knee in the back arm, under the chin weight settling. He set his feet. He twisted. The roar cut off. Silence. The corridor was full of bodies and silence. Reed stood up slowly. He was breathing a little harder now. Not much. A man who has just walked up a flight of stairs. His shirt was splattered. There was a long red smear down one sleeve. He turned. He looked at her. For just a moment, just a half a breath, that other man was still in his eyes. Cold. Old. Wide awake. A thing born on a world that had never given anyone a single inch of mercy. Then he blinked, and it was gone. And Reed was back. Just Reed. Her quiet husband. Her stew cook. Her basil-watering man. He took one step toward her. "Aaron," he said, "are you hurt?" The polite voice, the soft brown eyes, as if he had not just killed 12 men with his hands. She could not speak. She nodded. He nodded back. And then he frowned just slightly and looked down at himself. And then she saw it. A small dark spot just below his ribs on the left side. Spreading. Slow. Like ink on a page. Like a stain on a shirt. She had not heard the shot. Later she would learn that one of the Cathar had been playing dead. He had been under 2 of his comrades, and he had been waiting. And as Reed turned away to look at her, the man had lifted his sidearm and fired. Reed had killed him afterward. Of course he had. She had not even seen him do it. He had drawn the rifle up under his armpit and fired backward and put a slug through the man's eye. He had not even broken his eye contact with her, but the bullet was inside him. She saw his face change. "Oh," he said quietly, almost surprised. "All right." His knees went. He went down soft, the way a tower goes down when its foundations melt out underneath it, slow all at once. He hit the deck on his side. His hand pressed against the wet spot under his ribs and came away black with his own blood. Aaron was already running. She had not made the decision to run. Her body had made it. She was on her knees beside him before she knew she was moving her hands on his shoulders, her hands on his hands, her hands on the wet, horrifying place under his ribs that was getting wetter and wetter under her palms. "Reed. Reed, look at me. Look at me." "Looking. You're shot." "Yes. You're shot, Reed." "Stop saying Sorry." He smiled. He actually smiled. A small, lopsided thing. There was a fleck of blood at the corner of his mouth, and he smiled at her, like she had said something funny. She did not know she was crying until a tear hit his cheek. He blinked. He saw it. His brows pulled together. His clean hand came up. He brushed his thumb across her cheekbone, slow and careful the way he would have brushed flour off her face if she had been baking. "Don't," he said. Don't what? Don't cry. Hate that. Hate seeing you cry. Her voice was someone else's voice. Read Brennan. I will cry if I want to. Yes, ma'am. Don't you dare. What? Don't you dare die in front of me. He laughed. He actually laughed. It was a small, wet sound. It hurt him. He winced. Wasn't planning on it, he said. She heard footsteps. Hadran. Hadran was there, leaning hard against the bulkhead, one hand pressed to his own side. His armor was dented in along the ribs, and there was a slow, dark wetness spreading there too, but his eyes were sharp. Princess, he said. He's shot. I can see Princess. Help me lift him. Hadran, help me lift him. So she did. She did not remember walking. She did not remember the long corridor down to the medical bay. She remembered only Reed's weight under her arm, one of his arms over her shoulder, one over Hadran's, and the sound of his breath in and out, slower than it should have been, but steady, steady, steady. She kept saying his name. He kept answering. That was all she needed. For now, that was all she needed. The medbay robots moved fast. They peeled him out of his ruined shirt. They scanned him. They cut him open along the wound channel with the cold blue light of a surgical laser. Erin stood at the foot of the bed, with her hands pressed flat against the rail. She did not blink. She did not look away. If she looked away, she thought he would die. Some part of her was certain of this. If she stopped watching, his heart would stop. Her job now was simply to watch. She watched. Hadran sat in the chair beside her. The medics had tried to take him to a second bed. He had not allowed it. They had patched his side, and they had wrapped his ribs, and he had refused everything else. And now he sat in the chair with his back very straight, and his face very gray, and his eyes very tired. And he watched her watch Reed. The surgery took 57 minutes. She counted. When it was done, the chief robot turned a soft green and said, "The patient is stable. The patient will sleep for approximately 3 hours. He is not in danger." Erin's knees went out. Hadran caught her elbow before she hit the floor. She did not even know he had moved. He guided her into a chair. He did not let go for a long time. She sat. She breathed. She listened to the soft, rhythmic beat of Reed's heart. Hadran said nothing. After a while, she said, "I don't know who I married. No, Princess. I don't, Hadran. You will. He will tell you." "How do you know?" "Because he is a good man." She turned and looked at her old captain. His face was carved out of stone. His eyes were a little too wet. "How do you know that?" she said. "Because he did not have to do what he did. He had to. They were going to take me. He had to once. He did not have to 12 times. He did not have to put himself between you and the last pirate. He did not have to take that bullet. He chose to. A man who chooses when he does not have to. That is the only kind of good man there is." She closed her eyes. She nodded. Hadran took her hand. He had never taken her hand before. Not once in 25 years. He had clapped her on the shoulder. He had pressed his forehead to hers in the warrior's blessing. He had never taken her hand. His palm was rough and warm and a little bit sticky. with blood, she realized. She did not pull away. Reed woke up 2 hours later. She was still in the chair. Hadran was still in his. Reed's eyes opened slowly, and they tracked drugged and dreamy across the ceiling, then to the wall, then to her. He smiled. She felt it in her chest, like a small, bright thing turning on. "Hi," he said. "Hi. You okay? Am I okay?" Reed Brennan, you are asking if I'm okay. You were shot. I noticed. In the stomach. Yes. And you're asking me?" He smiled wider. "Yes," he said. She put her face in her hands. She did not cry. She wanted to. She did not. She kept her face there for a long time in the dark of her own palms, and she breathed, and she breathed, and when she came up, her eyes were dry, and her voice was steady, and she said, "Tell me." He looked at her. "All of it," she said. "Whatever you didn't tell me, I want all of it, now." He was quiet for a long moment. The drugs were heavy in him. She could see him struggle to drag himself up through the fog of them, to bring himself fully into the room. He did it. He always did. That she would come to understand later was simply the kind of man he was. He nodded. "Okay," he said. "Okay," from the top. He had enlisted at 18, he told her. The Ash years were still ongoing. The wars were still ongoing. The Earth Coalition was still in the middle of what historians would later call the Reclamation, the long, ugly 2-decade fight to push back the warlord states that had grown up out of the climate collapse like fungus on a dead tree. They had taken him because he was big and strong and could shoot, and because after 6 months of digging for his sister, he had nothing left in his hands that he was afraid to use. They had put him in Sentinel. It was the Special Forces program, he said. His voice was very quiet. The hard one. The one nobody talks about. They didn't take volunteers. They watched you in basic. They picked you. They came for me on the 4th week. What did you do? Everything. He didn't elaborate. She didn't ask him to. He fought for 8 years, from 18 to 26. He did not say where, and he did not say how many, and he did not say how. But she watched his face while he tried not to say it, and she understood. He had killed. He had killed and killed and killed. He had killed people he was supposed to kill, and he had killed people he had not been supposed to kill, but had had to anyway, and he had killed people he could not afterward justify, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, he had stopped being able to count. At 26, I came home, he said. I went up to my mother's porch. I sat down on the steps. I cried for a long time. She didn't ask me anything. She made me soup. She held my head. She said, he stopped. He had to. She said, he tried again. Reed, you have killed enough. You come home now. You come home, and you learn how to love something. You learn how to be soft with something. You sit in this kitchen with me, and you learn it again. And did you? I tried. How? For 2 years. I lived with her. I gardened. I learned to cook. She made me read poetry. Mary Oliver mostly. I hated it at first. Then I didn't. Then it saved me a little, I think. Erin was crying. She did not know when she had started crying. And then the diplomatic corps came. They needed someone. They needed a man who had killed and could stop killing. They thought it would teach the other side something. They said I would be helping make a peace. I thought. He stopped. She waited. I thought he said, I could be a husband. I thought I could come here and meet you and we could build something. I thought that was the deal. I didn't tell you about Sentinel because I was trying to put it down. My mother said I had to learn when to put something down. I was trying. She could not speak. He looked at her. I'm sorry, Erin. For what? For not telling you. For letting you think I was just Reed. Yes. Shut up. She got out of her chair. She sat on the edge of his bed very carefully so as not to jostle the wound. She took his hand, the clean one, the one that had not been wet with his own blood an hour before. She brought it to her cheek. She held it there. He looked at her like a man who had not expected to be looked at ever by anyone again in this kind of way. I have been a fool, she whispered. No. I have Reed. No. For 20 days I have treated you like furniture. Erin, for 20 days you have made me stew. Stew is easy. It is not. It really is. Reed Brennan. Yes. Be quiet. He smiled. He was quiet. She held his hand to her cheek for a long time, and Hadron in his corner looked carefully down at the floor and pretended very hard that he was not in the room at all. 20 minutes later, Reed asked her to fetch his coat. It was hanging on the hook by the door, splattered ruined. She brought it. He had her reach into the inside pocket. There was a small leather pouch there, and inside the pouch a folded paper. The letter. She knew. She had seen him kiss it. Read it, he said. Read, please. She held it carefully. She unfolded it carefully. The paper smelled faintly of something green and warm. Like a kitchen on a summer morning. Like a window left open in a garden. She read. She read it out loud because he wanted her to, and because her own voice had gone very small, and she needed to hear it speaking words. Dear Reed, she read, it is the 3rd Saturday of October, and I am writing you from the porch. Biscuit is asleep on the railing. He has gotten so fat. I think he is going to need to give up his life of crime soon. The brandy wines are in. I have put 4 jars of sauce up already this week. They are the deep red kind, the heirloom ones your grandfather loved. I have set aside 2 jars for you. I have set aside 2 more for when you bring her home. Erin's voice cracked. She had to stop. She read on. Read, honey. If you are reading this letter, it means you are alive. And that is the first and best news. And I will sit on the porch and thank the small good God of porches for it. And if your wife is reading this with you, Erin's sweetheart, if you are reading this with him, she had to stop again. Erin. Sweetheart. No one had ever called her sweetheart. Not once. Not in 25 years. She felt her face crumple. She felt her throat close. She kept reading. Because Reed was watching her with those soft brown eyes. And because the letter was not finished, and because some new strange thing inside her chest, something that had been buried in ice for 17 years, was beginning slowly to thaw. Erin, sweetheart, I have not met you yet, and I do not know what you look like, and I do not know your favorite color, and I do not know if you take honey in your tea. But I will tell you a secret. I have loved you already. I have loved you for a long time, because Reed chose you, and my Reed has never in his life chosen wrong. Not once. Not as a small boy. Not as a man, not in anything that mattered. So you are loved, sweet girl. You are loved already, and you are loved here by a 66-year-old woman in a sweater on a porch in Vermont who has been waiting for you all her life. Take care of each other. Come home if you can. I have planted an extra row of brandy wines just for the two of you. Biscuit will not say so, but he is also waiting. All my love, Maggie. Erin could not read anymore. She had stopped breathing several lines back. The page in her hands was wet. She set the letter on Reed's chest. She put both of her hands over her face, and she cried. She cried the way she had not cried since she was 8 years old. She cried for the mother who had died when she was a girl. She cried for the 17 years she had spent in a forge instead of a kitchen. She cried for every letter she had never received, and every soft hand she had never held, and every time someone had called her princess instead of sweetheart, instead of honey, instead of darling girl. She cried for the porch in Vermont, where a 66-year-old woman was waiting for her, with 2 jars of tomato sauce and a fat orange cat. She cried because her name had been said in a kitchen by a woman who had never met her. She cried because she had been loved somewhere by someone before she had even known it. Reed let her. He did not say anything. His hand found hers and stayed there. When she finally lifted her face, swollen and ugly with weeping, he simply said very softly, "She really did mean the tomatoes." And Erin laughed, a wet, broken, helpless laugh. She laughed and could not stop, and her ribs hurt with it, and the laugh became a cry again, and the cry became a laugh again. And through all of it, Reed Brennan held her hand and watched her face, and his eyes were the kindest things she had ever seen. It was Hadrian who broke it. His voice was very thin when it came. She did not turn for a moment. She thought he had spoken to a medic. Then he said it again, and she heard the wrongness of it, and she turned. "Princess, Hadran, come here, my princess." She got up. She walked to his chair. The med robots had hooked him up to a small bag of fluid, and the bag was nearly empty, and his lips were a color she did not like. He was so pale. He had been so pale, and she had not been looking. "Hadran, sit, child. You said you were fine. You said, 'I lied, princess.'" She knelt beside the chair. "You lied to me." "Yes." "Hadran, I wanted to see," he said quietly. "I wanted to see the boy come back. I wanted to see you read that letter. I have one favor left in my body, princess, just one, and I have spent it on this." "Hadran, no, no. The robots have done what they can, my princess." "That's not true." "Erin." He had not called her by her name in 17 years. She went very still. He smiled. It was a small thing. A tired, satisfied thing. He reached out slow and put his big, rough hand on the top of her head, the way he had when she was 4 years old, the way he had when she was 12, and her mother had been dead for the first time at every season. "Listen to me," he said. "I'm listening. I have loved you like a daughter. Hadran, Listen. She listened. I have one thing to ask of you, he said, before I go. I have served your father for 46 years, and I have served you for 25, and I have earned the right to ask one thing. Will you give it to me? Yes. You do not even know what it is. Yes, Hadron. Anything. He smiled again. Stop being a warrior, my girl. She blinked. Stop. The training will keep. The sword will keep. The throne will keep. They will all keep without you for a while. Go and be a woman. Go and be a wife. Go and meet your husband's mother. Go and put your hands in dirt. Go and grow a tomato. Go and have a child. Go and laugh. Go and rest. Her face crumpled again. That is your victory, child. Hadron, please, not the dagger, not the pike, the porch. The porch is the victory. The kitchen is the victory. The man whose hand you can hold without flinching is the victory. She nodded. She could not speak. Promise me, he whispered. I promise. Say the words, child. A Valdric princess. Say the words. I promise, Hadron. I promise. I promise. Good. His hand slid from her hair to her cheek. He cupped her face. He looked at her, and his old eyes were a long way away already. There she is, he said. There is my girl. His hand fell. The monitor at the side of his chair sang a single soft note. He was gone. She did not know how long she stayed kneeling there. She knew that Reed behind her in the bed had begun to cry. Quietly, without sound. She knew this because she could feel his grief somehow on the air in the room, the way a person can feel weather coming. She knew that the med robots were moving around her, and that they had the decency, the small mechanical decency, to wait. She knew that her own hand had risen of its own accord and closed Hadron's eyes. Her old captain. Her second father. She stayed there until her knees would no longer hold her. Then she got up. She walked slowly to Reed's bed. She sat on the edge of it. She took his hand. He took hers. Neither of them spoke for a very long time. Finally, she said in a voice that did not sound like hers, I am going to do as he said. What? I'm going to take you home, Reed Brennan. He went very still. Home. To Vermont. Erin. To your mother. His face. She would remember his face for the rest of her life, the way it moved slowly from one shape to another. Surprise. Disbelief. A small, terrible hope, the kind a man tries to swallow before he is hurt by it. Erin, there is going to be a war, isn't there? About me. About this marriage. About the treaty. I do not care, Reed. I am 25 years old. I have killed 3 men with my own hands, and I have been a princess for all my life, and I have never been called sweetheart by another human being. I am going to take you home. To your mother. I am going to meet her. I am going to sit in her kitchen. I am going to eat her tomatoes. She was steady now, calmer than she had been in years. Hadron said the porch is the victory, so I am going to win, Reed. For once in my life, I am going to win something. I am going to win this. He brought her hand to his mouth and pressed his lips to her knuckles. He held it there. He did not say a word. He did not have to. The Stellar Concord turned that night away from Valoran Prime, and away from the Cathar lanes, and away from every approved route on its diplomatic mission schedule. Erin signed the orders herself, with her princess seal, on a screen that her father, light years away, was going to scream at when he saw it. She did not care. She walked to the long sitting room window alone in the dark. She stood there for a long time. The stars slid by slow and silver, as they had on her first night aboard, when she had hated everything in the universe and everyone in it. She put her hand on the window. She thought of a porch in Vermont. She thought of a woman in a sweater. She thought of an orange cat. She thought of jars of red sauce lined up on a shelf, and a row of brandywine tomatoes planted special for 2 people who had never come. She thought of Hadron. She whispered into the empty room, "I am coming, Maggie." The stars did not answer, but somewhere very far away on a small green planet at the bottom of a long, dark lane, a 66-year-old woman was at that exact moment sitting on a porch with a fat orange cat on her lap, looking up at a sky she could not read, and she was thinking very simply of her son, and of the girl she had not yet met, and waiting, and waiting, and waiting. Part 3. The transmission to her father took her 4 hours to write, not because the words were hard. The words were easy. She had been carrying them in her chest for 25 years. It was the sending that was hard. Erin sat at the small desk in the Stellar Concorde's communications bay. She wore a plain gray robe she had taken from Reed's wardrobe. It was too big in the shoulders. It smelled like him, like soap and basil and the warm, clean smell of a man who had nothing to hide. She had not slept. She was not going to sleep. She opened the line. She wrote, "Father, I am not coming home. I am going to Earth. I am going to Vermont. I am going to meet my husband's mother. This is not a request. This is a notification. Hadron is dead. He died well. He died telling me to live. I am going to live, Father. I am 25 years old, and I have never lived a single day. I am going to start now. The treaty stands. My marriage stands. I am not abdicating. I am simply taking a journey. If you wish to call this a betrayal, you may. If you wish to call this a war, you may. I will not stop you, but I will not turn this ship around. Your daughter, Erin." She read it once. She did not read it twice. She pressed send. She closed her eyes. She waited. His reply came 11 hours later. She was in the med bay when the chime sounded. She had been sleeping in the chair beside Reed's bed, her head on his blanket, her hand still loosely curled around his. She lifted her head. The screen at the foot of the bed pulsed soft blue. Priority transmission. Throne of Valoran. She did not want to open it. She opened it. Her father's face filled the screen. Maelric Valdric, 60 years old, 240 pounds of scar tissue. The Emperor of Valoran. The man who had handed her like a chess piece to a husband she had not chosen. He looked tired. That was the first thing. She had never seen him look tired. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He looked into the camera for a long moment, and then he said very quietly, "Your mother would be proud of you." That was it. That was the whole message. He reached up. He cut the feed. The screen went dark. Erin stared at the empty screen for a long time. Then she put her head back down on Reed's blanket, and she let herself feel for one full minute the strange new weight of being a daughter whose father had finally said the right thing. She did not cry. She had cried enough for 1 week. She just breathed. Reed was on his feet again in 6 days. Slow. Careful. With one hand pressed flat against his side, the way a man holds a book closed against a wind. The med robots had told him 2 weeks. He gave it 6 days. When she scolded him, he smiled at her and said, "Aaron, I have walked off worse. That is not comforting. No, that is the opposite of comforting. I know. Reed. Yes. Stop almost dying. Working on it." She loved him. She had not said it yet. Not out loud. But she was beginning to understand that the thing she had been feeling for many days now, the thing that lived behind her ribs and woke up when he walked into a room, the thing that made her hands clumsy when he was watching, the thing that made her stew bowls suddenly the most interesting objects in the universe. That thing was love. It was inconvenient. It was terrifying. It was, she suspected, going to ruin her. She did not say it. She just held his hand a little tighter when they walked the corridors. They were 8 days from Earth when she finally opened the journal. She had carried it for years. A small green leather book, worn at the corners. The clasp tarnished. Her mother's handwriting on the inside cover in faded blue ink. Liana Valdrick, in her own hand, in the year she had died. Aaron had never read it. She had not been able to. For 17 years, she had carried this small green book with her, and for 17 years, she had not opened it. Reed found her with it one evening. She was sitting on the bench by the long window, the book unopened in her lap, her hands very still on top of it. He sat down next to her. He did not ask. After a long time, he said gently, "Do you want me to read it to you?" She shook her head. "Do you want me to leave?" She shook her head. "Do you want me to sit here and say nothing?" She nodded. So he did. He sat there for an hour. He did not move. He did not check a screen. He did not hum. He just sat. With her. While she stared at her mother's handwriting on the inside cover of a book she had not been able to open since she was 8 years old. Finally she said, "I am afraid. I know. What if she did not love me?" "Aaron, what if I open it and she did not?" "She did." "How do you know?" He looked at her, brown eyes, steady. The lamplight made gold of them, because no one who could write a daughter a journal could fail to love her, because you are her daughter, and you are easy to love, because I have known you for 20 days, and I have already failed to not love you, and I am a man who has spent 8 years training to not love anyone. So whatever your mother was, she loved you. She stared at him. "You love me." He blinked. A flush, very slow, very Vermont, climbed up his neck and into his ears. "Ah," he said. "You just..." "Yes." In passing. Reed Brennan. "Yes. You love me. Yes. Since when?" "Since the bowl. The bowl. You rinsed the bowl. On the 10th day. I saw it in the morning. I stood at the sink. And I..." He stopped. "Yes," he said simply. She could not speak. She looked down at the book. She looked at his hand. She put her hand on top of his hand. Carefully. The way a person puts a hand on something fragile. Read. I'm going to open it now. Okay. Stay. Yes. She opened it. The first page said, "For my daughter Erin, who I will not get to teach." Erin's breath stopped. She read on. Her mother had written the journal in the last 6 months of her life. She had not told anyone. She had known she was dying. She had known there would be no second year, no 10th birthday, no first heartbreak, no wedding. She had known. So she had written. She had written about everything, about what to do when you cannot sleep, about how to braid your own hair when no one is around to help, about what kind of man to look for and what kind to walk away from, about how she herself had been afraid on her own wedding day, and how the fear had not meant the marriage was wrong, only that the marriage was real. She had written about the day Erin was born, about the way her tiny fist had closed around Liana's finger and had not let go for the whole first night. She had written on page 41 in a careful round hand, "My darling girl, I hope by the time you read this, you have learned to be soft. I know your father will try to make you hard. He will not mean to wound you. He will mean to protect you. But hardness is not protection. Hardness is only hardness. The thing that protects a woman is not her armor. It is her willingness to be loved by the right people. So find them, my heart. Find your right people. Find them and let them in." Erin pressed her hand to her mouth. The tears came slow this time. Soft. The kind of tears that do not break a face, only open it. Reed did not move. Reed did not say a word. Reed simply sat there, with her, and let her read. She read for 2 hours. When she closed the book, she pressed it to her chest. She said very softly, "Reed, yes, I think I have found them." "Found what?" "My right people." He looked at her. He did not say anything stupid. He did not make a joke. He did not say, "Oh, who?" although there was a tiny, helpless brightness in his eyes that wanted to. He just nodded and held her hand. Earth was blue. That was the first thing. She had seen pictures. She had read books. She had even once as a child been shown a hologram of it in her astronomy lessons. But the pictures and the books and the hologram had not prepared her for the actual seeing of it through the porthole of the stellar concord as they came out of the last jump. The actual living blue. The clouds. The white spiraling weather of the atmosphere. The way it turned slow and patient, like a thing that had been turning forever and intended to keep turning forever. Reed stood beside her at the porthole. He did not say anything for a long time. Then he said, "There she is. Earth. My home. It is so blue. Reed. Yes. I am going to embarrass myself. Probably. What if she does not like me? She likes you. She has not met me. She already likes you. She told you so in the letter. That was a letter. Letters count. Reed. Erin. What if I do something wrong? You won't. What if I bow when I should hug? She will hug you anyway. What if I don't know how to be a daughter? He turned. He took her shoulders. Gently. His thumbs rested in the soft hollows just below her collarbones, the way they had on a night that already felt like a lifetime ago. Aaron, yes. My mother has been waiting 66 years to have a daughter. You do not have to know how. She will teach you. She nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. She turned back to the porthole. She watched her new home turn slowly in the dark, and she thought with a feeling she had never had before. A feeling like standing in the doorway of a warm kitchen on a cold night. I am coming. I am almost there. I am coming. They landed in a green field in northern Vermont on the 3rd Saturday of October. The leaves had turned. She had not been ready for the leaves. Reed had described them to her many times. He had used words like flame and red and copper. She had nodded politely. She had thought leaves are leaves. She had been wrong. The whole valley was on fire, slow and silent and impossibly beautiful. Maples, oaks, birches she could not yet name. They burned in every shade of orange and yellow and deep dark red, and the air smelled of cold water and wood smoke, and something faintly sweet like apples left too long on a tree. She stepped off the shuttle. Her boots sank into wet grass. She had never in her whole life stood on a planet that was not Valoran. She drew a long breath. She held it. She let it out slow. Reed took her hand. "Easy," he said. "I am fine. You are not breathing right. I am breathing fine. Aaron." "Hush." The shuttle pilot wished them well. The shuttle lifted off. It vanished into the bright, cold blue. The sky was empty. The field was quiet. There was a single narrow road. It curved up over a low hill. At the top of the hill was a small white house with a red tin roof. A thin gray ribbon of smoke rose from the chimney. Aaron stood there. She could not move. Reed waited. After a moment, he said very softly, "Aaron." "Yes, that is the house. Yes, that is where she is. Yes. Are you going to walk?" "In a minute." "Take your time. Reed." "Yes. I think my knees are not working. That happens. Has it ever happened to you?" "Yes." "When?" "Once. On a porch in Vermont. After 6 months of digging." She turned and looked at him. His brown eyes were a little wet. She nodded. She squeezed his hand. She took a step, and then another, and then they were walking up the road, the two of them, together hand in hand, while the leaves came down around them in a slow, burning rain. The dog saw them first. It was not a dog. It was a cat. An enormous fat orange cat with one torn ear and the deeply offended expression of a creature who has been disturbed before he was good and ready. He was sitting on the porch railing. He saw them coming up the road. He stood. He stretched. He yawned. Biscuit, Aaron thought. That is Biscuit. She had read about Biscuit in 3 different letters. He looked, she thought, exactly like a biscuit. Then the porch door opened. A woman stepped out. Aaron could not breathe. She was small. That was the first thing. Smaller than Aaron had imagined. 5'3" maybe. White hair swept back loose into a soft knot at the nape of her neck. A cream-colored sweater with sleeves pushed up to the elbows. Faded blue jeans. House slippers. House slippers. The same kind Reed wore. Aaron made a sound. a small, wet, half-laughing sound. The woman did not see them at first. She was wiping flour from her hands on a kitchen towel. Then her head came up. Her eyes found the road. She froze. She saw her son, her face. Erin would never forget her face. It went from confusion to disbelief to a kind of cracked open joy in 3 quick beats, the way a window cracks under a great heat all at once and all the way through. She dropped the towel. She did not run. Her hip would not let her run. But she walked fast, almost too fast for an old woman down the porch steps and out across the gravel of the driveway. And Reed was already letting go of Erin's hand and going to her. And Erin stood frozen in the road and watched her husband walk into his mother's arms. Maggie Brennan hugged her son like she had been waiting 2 years to do it, which she had. She did not say anything for a long moment. She just put her hands on either side of his face and looked at him, and looked at him, and looked at him, as if she was making sure he was real, as if she was making sure all his parts were where she had last left them. Reed bent down. He pressed his forehead to hers. He closed his eyes. "Hi, Mama." "Hi, baby." That was all. That was the whole thing. Erin turned her face away. She felt like she was watching something she was not allowed to see. Something private. Something holy. Then Maggie said behind her very softly, "And who is this?" Erin turned back. Maggie Brennan was looking at her over her son's shoulder. Her eyes were blue. Clear, soft blue. The exact same blue as the autumn sky behind her. Erin had never seen eyes that color in her life. Valoran eyes were gold or black or very rarely deep green. They were not blue. They were not this kind of blue. Erin could not speak. She had practiced. On the ship for 8 days she had practiced. She had stood in front of the bathroom mirror, and she had said hello. "Mrs. Brennan, it is an honor to meet you." She had said hello. "I am Erin Reed's wife." She had said hello, 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 in 15 different tones. None of them came out now. Her mouth opened. Her mouth closed. Maggie smiled. It was the kindest smile Erin had ever seen on a face. It was the smile of a woman who had buried a husband and a daughter and had lived through a planetary disaster and had still somehow, against all reason, decided to be kind. Maggie walked forward. She left Reed standing there. She walked right up to Erin. She was so small. She came up to Erin's chin. She did not hesitate. She opened her arms. "Come here, baby girl," she said. Erin went. She bent down. She had to. She was taller. Maggie's arms went around her soft and strong, and the cream sweater smelled like flour and wood smoke, and something faintly green, basil maybe. And Erin put her face in the soft place where the old woman's neck met her shoulder, and Erin made a sound that she had not made since she was 8 years old, and her mother's hand had gone cold in her own. She wept. Not politely. Not gracefully. She wept like a child. Loud, ugly gasping. Her whole body shook with it. Her knees gave. Maggie held her up. Maggie, who was 66 years old and barely 5'3", held up a Valdric princess, 25 years old, and trained in 17 martial forms, and stroked the back of her head, and rocked her slow side to side, and murmured, There now. There now. You're home, sweetheart. You're home. You're home. Erin had never heard those two words in that order in her whole life. She wept harder. Behind her, Reed stood quietly. She did not see him. She did not need to. She knew her husband by now. Maggie did not let go. For a long, long time, Maggie did not let go. Finally, she pulled back. Just an inch. Just enough to put her two small old hands on either side of Erin's face, the way she had done to her son, and to look up at her, and to smile through her own tears. "There you are," Maggie whispered. Erin nodded. "There you are, my girl." Erin nodded again. "Welcome home, sweetheart." Erin could not nod a third time. Erin just stood there and let an old woman from Vermont be, for the first time in 17 years, her mother. They went inside. That was the next thing. Erin could not remember walking. She remembered Maggie's arm around her waist. She remembered the porch steps. She remembered the soft chime of a brass bell on the door. The kitchen was warm. It smelled of butter and apples. There was a pie on the counter, cooling, a real pie. Erin had read about pies. She had never seen one. There was a black iron stove with a kettle on it. There was a wooden table with 4 chairs around it. 3 of them old and well-worn, and one of them new, much newer, set in the place facing the window. Erin looked at the new chair. Maggie saw her look. "I bought it last spring," Maggie said. Quiet, almost shy. "When Reed wrote me about the wedding, I thought she might come someday." Erin's hand went to her mouth. Maggie smiled. Sheepish. "I am a foolish old woman." "No, I am sweetheart. I bought a chair for a girl I had not met." "You are not foolish." "No, you are." Erin's voice cracked. "You are not foolish. You are. You are the bravest woman I have ever known." Maggie laughed, small and surprised. "Oh, honey." "No." "Yes. I just bought a chair." "You bought a chair for someone you had not met, whose people had been at war with yours, who might never come. You bought it anyway. You have been keeping it warm for me, for a year, by the window, in the good light." She looked at the chair. She looked at the old woman. She said very quietly, "That is the bravest thing I have ever heard of." Maggie's eyes filled. She turned away. She busied herself with the kettle. She wiped her eyes with the corner of her apron. "Well," she said, brisk and trembling. "Well, sit down, sweetheart. Sit in your chair. I'll put the tea on." Erin sat, in her chair, by the window, in the good light. She put both hands flat on the table. The table was real wood. It had been scarred by 1,000 small, ordinary disasters. A burn ring from a hot pan. A long scratch where a knife had slipped. A small dent shaped like a fork tine, low on the edge, where some child long ago had taken out their temper. She loved it. She loved it more than any piece of furniture she had ever touched, in any palace in her life. Reed sat down across from her. He was watching her. His brown eyes were shining. He mouthed silently, "See." She mouthed back, "I see." The first night Erin slept 12 hours. She had not slept 12 hours in a row since she was a small child. She woke in the soft gold light of a Vermont morning, in a feather bed that was older than she was, with a quilt pulled up to her chin that Maggie had stitched by hand. The winter Reed was 3. She could smell coffee from downstairs. She could hear Maggie moving in the kitchen. She could hear Reed's voice low talking about something, and Maggie laughing that small, soft laugh that already she was beginning to memorize. She got up. She wore one of Maggie's old flannels and a pair of borrowed wool socks. She went downstairs. The cat. Biscuit. He was sitting in the middle of the kitchen floor very deliberately, like a person who has staked a claim. He watched her come down the stairs. He did not move. He stared. "Good morning, Biscuit," she said. He blinked slowly once. She took it as approval. Maggie turned from the stove. She smiled. "Did you sleep, sweetheart?" "Yes." "Well, yes. Reed said you don't sleep well. He worries." Erin looked at her husband. Reed was at the table with both hands around a mug. He had the decency to look caught. "I sleep fine," Erin said. "She doesn't sleep fine," Reed said. "Reed. She has bad dreams." "Reed. Mom, she has bad dreams. You should know." Maggie put a hand on Erin's shoulder. Just a hand. Light as a leaf. "That'll pass, sweetheart." "How do you know?" "Because you're here now." "Oh." "Sit down. Eat. You're thin." "I am not." "You are. You're a stalk of celery. Sit. Eat." She sat. She ate. Eggs, toast, bacon, apples. Erin had never had bacon. The first piece broke her. She made a small, helpless noise of pleasure into her plate, and Maggie laughed delighted, and Reed laughed, and Biscuit, still on the floor, gave a long, suspicious sniff in the direction of the table. Erin ate 2 whole plates. Maggie watched her beaming. When Erin finally pushed back from the table, Maggie said, "Come outside with me, honey. I want to show you something." It was the garden. October in Vermont. Most of the beds were closed up for the winter dark earth turned over dried stalks piled neatly to the side. But at the far end of the small fenced plot, behind a row of low wooden stakes, there was a single double row of plants that had been carefully covered against the early frost. Tomato plants. Late ones. Erin knew before Maggie said it. "Brandywines," Maggie said. "Oh. I planted them in May, for when you came. I have been keeping them alive with old bed sheets. The frost almost got them twice. I would not let it." Erin looked at the small, dark fruits still hanging on the vines. Real ones. Real brandywines. Heirloom red, almost purple in the cold morning light. Not many. A double handful. For her. Saved. All summer. For her. "I told you in my letter," Maggie said quietly. "I said I had set aside a row." "Yes. I wanted you to see them. Before we picked them." Erin nodded. She could not speak. She knelt down slowly in the cold dirt. She put her hand against one of the plants. The stem was rough. The leaves were the color of an old penny. The fruit hung warm against her palm. She thought of Hadron. She thought of the porch. She thought of the man who had told her with his dying breath that the garden was the victory. "I want to pick them with you," she said. "Good. Will you teach me how?" Maggie knelt beside her, with effort. Slow. Old knees. She put her hand over Erin's on the stem. "It's easy, sweetheart. You twist gently. The good ones come away on their own. The ones that don't want to come, you leave. Like people. Maggie looked at her. Yes, Maggie said softly. Just like people. They picked the tomatoes. Slowly. Together. In the cold gold light of an October morning in Vermont, while Reed stood on the porch with both hands wrapped around a coffee mug and watched his mother and his wife kneel together in the dirt. He did not say anything. He just smiled. A long, slow, quiet smile. He had carried a basil cutting 40 light years. He had been right. That night, after dinner, after Maggie had gone to bed, after Biscuit had taken up his accustomed place on the back of the couch, Aaron and Reed stood on the porch. The night was cold. She wore his coat. The same coat. The one with the photograph in the pocket. The blood had been cleaned out of it. The hole in the lining had been stitched. By Maggie. Without asking. Aaron stood at the railing. She looked up. The Vermont sky was full of stars. So many. So bright. She had never seen stars like these. From orbit, stars were just light. From a porch on a planet looking up on a clear October night, stars were something else. They were a thing a person could fall into. Reed stood beside her. He did not touch her at first. He just stood there. The dark hush of his breathing. The faint warmth of his shoulder beside hers. After a long moment, she said, I was wrong about you. From the beginning, I was wrong. Aaron, let me say it. He was quiet. I thought you were weak, because you were soft. I thought you were nothing, because you were quiet. I thought my father had insulted me by giving me to a man who hummed, who watered a plant, who cooked stew. I was wrong, Reed. Aaron, let me finish. He let her. She turned. She put both hands on his chest. She could feel his heartbeat under her palm. Steady. Unhurried. The heartbeat of a man who had killed 12 men in under a minute and was somehow the most peaceful thing she had ever touched. You were not weak, she said. You were strong. Aaron, you were strong enough to put it down. He stopped. He looked at her. His brown eyes in the porch light. So tired. So glad. So very, very glad. You spent 8 years, she said, learning to be a weapon. And you spent 2 more years with your mother learning to be a man. And then you came to me. And you tried to be a husband. And I called you a fool for it. For 35 days I called you a fool. For 35 days I thought softness was the same thing as weakness. For 35 days I missed it. She drew a breath. Steady. The strongest thing you have ever done. Reed Brennan is the basil. The strongest thing you have ever done is the stew. The strongest thing you have ever done is to take a bullet for a woman who would not eat your soup. Aaron. And the strongest thing I will ever do, she took a breath, is to let you love me. He closed his eyes. He pressed his forehead to hers. Aaron. Yes. I love you. I know. I have loved you since the bowl. I know. Aaron. Yes. I'd like to kiss my wife now. Yes. He kissed her. It was their first kiss. She had been married to him for 35 days. He had killed 12 men for her. She had crossed the galaxy for him. She had wept into his mother's shoulder that morning. He had stitched her name into the inside of his rib cage and not told her about it until he could not help it. And only now, only standing on a porch in Vermont, in a borrowed coat under stars she had never seen, did he kiss her. She thought with a small, clear surprise. So this is what it is. So this is what I have been missing. So this. A year passed. The seasons did what seasons do. Winter came, and Erin learned how snow felt under bare feet on a porch in the morning. Spring came, and she learned the names of the small green things that pushed up out of the dirt. Summer came, and she learned about heat that was wet instead of dry, about thunderstorms that rolled in over the hills, with the sound of an arm about fireflies in the grass at dusk. She learned to make pie crust, badly at first. Better later. She learned the names of Maggie's neighbors. Mr. Henley down the road, the Ostrowski sisters at the farm stand, Pastor Doyle, who came by for tea on Wednesdays and called her Mrs. Brennan, dear, in a way that made her chest ache pleasantly every time. Mrs. Brennan. She was Mrs. Brennan. She had been Princess Erin Valdrick, heir to the throne of Valoran, master of 17 martial forms, and she had become Mrs. Brennan, who burned the bottom crust of her first apple pie and made Maggie laugh until she had to sit down on a kitchen chair to recover. It was the better trade. It was, she thought, the trade her mother had wanted for her all along. The baby was born in October, the third Saturday of October, the same Saturday they had come home 1 year before. Maggie said it was on purpose. Maggie said the baby had picked the date because the baby was a Brennan, and Brennans were stubborn about anniversaries. Erin laughed. It hurt to laugh. The labor was long. Maggie did not leave her side. Reed was there too at the foot of the bed, his face white, his hands shaking, his eyes never moving from his wife's face. The doctor was a small, calm woman from the next town over, who had delivered most of the babies in the valley for 30 years, and who, when the new baby finally came, slick and red and furious into the world, held her up and said, "Well, hello, sweet pea. About time." The baby screamed. The baby had a full head of dark hair. The baby had her father's brown eyes. Maggie took her first with shaking old hands and pressed her gently against Erin's chest. And Erin looked down at the small, wet, fierce face of her daughter, and she said quietly, with no plan, with no rehearsal, with the first true certainty of her whole life, "Hello, Liana." Reed made a soft sound. Maggie put her hand over her mouth. "Liana," Maggie whispered. "Yes." "After your mother." "Yes." "Oh, sweetheart." "My mother and my mother," Erin said. "Both. The one who started me, and the one who finished me." She looked up at Maggie. She held out one hand. Maggie took it. The three of them sat there for a long time, while the new baby breathed against Erin's chest, and the late October sun came in through the window, and the leaves outside burned slow and red across the whole green valley. That evening, Erin was alone for 1 minute on the porch. Only 1 minute. She had said she wanted air. Maggie had agreed reluctantly. Reed had wrapped her in 3 blankets and a coat and a scarf before he let her step out the door, like a man insulating a vase. She had laughed at him. He had ignored her. She had loved him. She stood on the porch. The night was cold. She looked up at the sky. She picked one star very deliberately on the western horizon. She did not know if it was Valoran, It probably was not. The geometry was wrong. But it was a star, and it was the right direction more or less, and that was good enough. She thought of her father. She thought of Hadron. She thought of her mother. She thought in particular of an old captain who had told her with his dying breath that the porch was the victory. She lifted her chin. She said into the dark Vermont air very softly, "Hadron, I won." The stars did not answer, but behind her through the window a baby cried, and a husband laughed, and an old woman said something soft and proud, and the warm yellow lamplight spilled out onto the floor of the porch, onto her boots, onto her hands. She turned. She went back inside. The door closed behind her. The light stayed on for a long time in the small white house with the red tin roof, on the small green hill, in the small good valley, on the small blue planet, at the bottom of the long dark lane. And in the kitchen on the wall, where Maggie had hung it that very morning, a small framed photograph caught the lamplight. An old man in obsidian armor, with kind, tired eyes, smiling out of the picture as though he had been waiting his whole life to be in this room. Erin passed it. She touched 2 fingers to her lips. She pressed them gently to the glass. "Good night, Captain," she whispered. And then she went to her family.